is the conference about the position of human rights in political systems. This panel will be about the next generation of human rights. I hope that it will be attempts at diagnosis and prediction for future. So we will ask chairing this panel, Professor Anju Gupta, Head of Department of Political Science, University Jaipur, Rajasthan, India. Anju is also a member of RC26 IPSA board. And during this session, we, according to our program, we should have the 3 speakers, but I'm afraid that now we can see only 2 speakers. I hope that maybe the third, Professor Ravinskar from India, will join this session. But okay, Anju, can you hear me? Can you see me? May I ask you for sharing the session? Yeah. Okay.
Yes, Jedrzej, you're very much audible. Am I audible?
Okay, we have the break for a minute, but now everything is okay. Don't move, and please start, okay? Yeah, Anju, you can start. Okay. Anju, we don't
Yes.
hear you.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, now it's okay. Yeah.
No.
Okay.
So, good evening. As per Indian Standard Time, it's evening here in India, and it is my pleasure and privilege to welcome you all in this IPSA RC26 Interim Conference on the evolution.
Oh, I'm afraid that we have technical problems. And unfortunately, we can't hear you now. We can see you now. Okay.
I'm very much confident that the diverse perspective of all the expertise gathered here will contribute to a rich and insightful discussion. See, the world is rapidly changing, and with this, the very nature of human rights is also changing. And the challenges that we are facing today are very much complex and they are interconnected, and they are demanding also for very innovative solutions and forward thinking approaches. So this panel, I think, it will be a unique platform.
I think that this is
we will also examine the potential impact of the development of human rights of these developments, and we will also discuss the strategies to ensure their protection and promotion. So let us, straight away join this journey together and shared a vision of future where human rights are upheld and protected by all the generations to come. We have Dr. Marco Marsili from University of Venice, and he will be speaking about the about safeguarding the future, developing the next generation of human rights for digital and cognitive domains. We have Professor Ravi Shankar, although he has not yet joined. He is from the Department of Political Science, NSS College, Pandalam, University of. in vulnerable Asian states. So over to you, Dr. Marco. We would like to listen your thoughts about how we can safeguard the future. What is there for the next generation. Let us hear from you.
Thanks very much, Professor Gupta. First of all, I'd like to thank the organizers of this very interesting
JJ, am I audible?
Sorry. Yeah. Everything is okay, Anju. Okay. Marco is starting his presentation. Okay.
Yeah. So I'd like to firstly, I'd like to thank the organizers of this conference, namely Jedrzej and Oscar and all the members of the RC26 IPSA.
I'm sorry to intervene, Marco. Was I audible, Oscar and JJ?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Okay, I will not try to repeat for the third time. Thanks to all the organizers and so on. So it's done. Consider it done. Thanks. So I jump into my presentation. I prepared a couple of slides. I will not take too much of your time. And usually I get much more into details with my presentations, much more technical details, and somehow also legal details. But in this case, I opted for a theoretical approach, a broader approach. So now I will share my presentation. So just 1 second. It's coming, yeah. I think that
yes,
you're
we
able
can see.
Yeah, thanks very much. So, okay. So welcome everyone. So we are going to explore how the rapid digital transformation is reshaping the landscape of human rights, because as technology advances, traditional human rights frameworks, which were designed for physical domains, are facing new challenges. So our goal today is to understand these challenges and discuss how we can develop new principles to protect individuals in this digital age. So we will delve into the implications of digitalization, artificial intelligence, and cognitive warfare, and how these factors necessitate a rethinking of human rights. So in this digital era, the impact of technology on human rights is very profound, and traditional frameworks are struggling to keep up with the pace of change. So we need to rethink and adapt these frameworks to address the unique challenges that are posed by digitalization, artificial intelligence, and other technological advancements. For instance, the rise of big data and machine learning algorithms has a significant implications for privacy and autonomy, requiring us to consider new rights, such as the right to data protection and algorithmic transparency. So just to give you an example, I've just talked about autonomy, because as Oscar highlighted before, when we chatted between the panels, artificial intelligence became so popular, as you know, so it became a hot topic nowadays. But there are also other problems, other issues that we are facing due to autonomy. It's not only about so-called soft power, I mean, that is soft artificial intelligence, but it brings also autonomy implication into the real world. If you think about the discussion that is ongoing since a couple of years within the GGA on laws, that is the group of governmental experts on lethal and autonomous weapon systems, that is a group of experts within the UNCCW, that is the Convention of Certain Conventional Weapons. So that there's a huge discussion between governments about the accountability when using autonomous lethal weapon systems. That is something, of course, that is linked directly to machine learning and to artificial intelligence, because artificial intelligence is a system of machine learning when the machines learn by themselves with neural-based systems like our brain, and it's like a child. You have to train your artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence is fed by your inputs, and they get an output that is based on what the machine have learned from you, not only from you, of course, but all of us. So there's a kind of responsibility, accountability behind this. And the discussion is about who takes the final decision and who is responsible, because when we come to talk like one of the previous presentations, when we come to talk about international justice, there should be someone who is accountable for the decision, and should be a human, of course, because we can't accept the tendency of the governments to give the machines the power to take decisions without a human supervision of the humans to take the final decision. So this is also, especially when we come to talk about the use of the lethal force, that is, the weapons. So this is something that it's interconnected very strictly to the human life. That is the first human right, of course, the right to life. So let's delve into the emerging challenges that are digitalization and artificial intelligence, that are transforming every aspect of our lives, as you know, because we have a lot of double use technologies. Some of them were developed for military uses, and afterwards they became also useful in civilian fields. On the other hand, we have technologies developed for civilian uses that are employed also for military purposes. And we have to find out some kind of framework that deals with both these areas of application. So cognitive warfare, just to say, and hybrid threats are becoming more prevalent, especially in this context, in the context of the confrontation, East-West confrontation. So we came back to the Cold War era. So this confrontation between East and West, in an attempt for reshaping the global governance and the global institutions like Security Council reform and so on. So there's a struggle ongoing between South Hemisphere South countries, undeveloped or emerging countries like Brazil, India, and some African countries and so on. So they are struggling because they claim that this institution, the global governance, was shaped by Western powers after the Second World War. That is absolutely true. When the world changed so much, and also if you look at the economy data, so Western powers do not account so much for the global global product. So most of the economy moved to Eastern countries, and global governance should take into consideration this changing in the economy and in global power. So these developments pose significant risks to our autonomy, as I told you before, to our privacy and our mental integrity. For example, the use of artificial intelligence in surveillance can lead to unprecedented levels of intrusion into personal lives, while cognitive warfare tactics can manipulate public opinion and can undermine the democratic processes. Because one of the presentations in the first panel addressed this issue, how with funding, with covert operation, and so on, it's possible to manipulate and to undermine public opinion, the trust in the public institution, in the state institutions, in foreign countries, by foreign agents, by foreign powers. So, but this is something that is that raises major concerns to me, because if you look to the European Union framework, that is made of two main acts. One is the Artificial Intelligence Act that came into force last August, and the other one is the act that regulates the digital services market. So we have to look to this act jointly, because we are dealing with a new kind of, I mean, I still like to use that old word, that is the old term, that is classic one, propaganda, now better known as disinformation, because disinformation is a Russian word that is disinformatia originally. So you do not listen anymore to fake news that became popular during the COVID-19 pandemic. Now you just hear to this word, this disinformation. It's just to say that all fake news or false news, they all come from Russia. So that is not true, of course, because Western government proved so many times that still in present time that they are able to lie very well. I still remember Secretary of State Colin Powell lying before the United Nations, the whole world, about the weapons of mass destruction of Saddam Hussein, that the United States knew very well that Saddam Hussein didn't own at all, and Tony Blair also, that testifying before the Chilcot Commission, the United Independent Commission established by the UK government, admitted that he lied, that he knew that there were no weapons of mass destruction at all in Iraq. So Western governments prove so many times that they are able also to do disinformation to gain the public, the support from public opinion for their actions. So, but nowadays, what is different is something very old. I mean, propaganda made by governments, like, you know, during the Second World War, the Nazi government had Goebbels, who was in charge as the Minister of Propaganda, and there was also a Minister of Propaganda in Italy with a different name, but was Ministry of Propaganda. So what is different now is the unprecedented scale of the rapidity with which the news are spread worldwide and come into your mobile device just in a second. So this has an impactful, a huge impact on the individuals and on the society at all. And due to technology, these are, I mean, artificial intelligence boosted applications that allow us to produce so-called deep fakes, that are manipulation of text, images, and videos. So that are so real-like ones that you are not able to distinguish, and people who are not prepared, I mean, are not resilient, they simply spread these contents that maybe they believe that these contents are real, or they know that they are fake. It depends, because we have to distinguish between disinformation, misinformation, and malinformation. I will not go into details right now, but this is one of the major challenges that we are facing today. But just to come back to the point, so there is this framework within the European Union, and there is also a legislation will be adopted also by other countries to mitigate the impact of so-called fake news or disinformation and deep fakes. But on the other side, we still have to protect our fundamental human rights, like the right to information, that is provided by the major international charts like the Universal Declaration on Human Rights, and just to come back to Europe, the European Convention on Human Rights, that is one of the most advanced instruments on human rights. So we have to find out a balance, I mean, a way to protect our societies from the bad influence of this malinformation, but on the other side, we cannot come back to censorship that remembers me dark times. So I think that the right to information is still prevalent. I mean, if you put these fundamental rights, on the scale, my opinion still prevails the right to information. So one of the most pressing issues is the threat to our cognitive and psychological well-being, as I was telling you, and cognitive manipulation and misinformation are rampant. Cyber surveillance is increasingly affecting our mental health. So we need robust protections against psychological harm and cognitive exploitation to ensure our mental well-being in this digital age. And this includes recognizing the right to mental privacy and developing safeguards against the psychological impacts of pervasive surveillance and targeted misinformation campaigns. Just to say, I'm focusing on this, my research currently since 1 year and a half ago, focuses on these topics because I collaborated with the ACT, the Allied Command Transformation, that is a command based in Norfolk, Virginia, is a NATO command, and I worked within the ACT initiative on developing the concept on cognitive warfare that was adopted by the ACT, by the NATO. So, and I was appointed in about 10 exploratory teams within the NATO STO, the NATO, that is NATO Science and Technology Organization. So I started working since 1 hour and a half and more, 1 year and a half ago, sorry, on this topic, the cognitive warfare, that is something different from information warfare, because it's designed, the cognitive warfare, to install narratives in the depth of our consciousness, in a way that we change our mind. It's a strategy that is designed to impact on our beliefs and to our decision process, the decision-making process, in a way that we change our mind, and time after time, we start acting automatically. So it's something that it will, cognitive warfare, it will have a huge and profound impact on individuals and on the society, and it will be able to fragment the entire society and to influence deeply also the decision makers and policy makers. So, okay. So immersive digital environments, like the future metaverse. The metaverse was coined, the term metaverse, in 1996 in this dystopic science fiction snow crash. It is something that is about information. I can quote from the book. It says that information is everything in the metaverse, and people they do understand that the importance, the relevance of information. This is in this dystopic science fiction book published in 1996, and now the metaverse is becoming a reality. So in these environments like the metaverse, the blurring lines between reality and virtuality, these lines are blurring. They figure out that with the classic social media network, this is a two dimensions social media. So you are in front of a screen and you're not inside. But the metaverse, we don't know how will be the future metaverse, but we know for sure that one of the enabling technologies will be artificial intelligence. and of course mixed augmented reality, virtual reality, mixed reality, and so on. So all these immersive realities, and the impact will be completely different from a classic social media, because we will be inside the social media, not outside. So the impact of this information, of the actions, of our experience in the metaverse will be completely different, much more impactful. So these environments offer new opportunities, but also make us vulnerable to subtle forms of influence and control. And it's essential to understand these vulnerabilities and develop strategies to protect individuals from manipulation in these digital spaces. For instance, the immersive nature of virtual reality, as I told you before, can be used for influence behavior and perceptions in ways that are not immediately apparent, but raising ethical concerns about consent and autonomy, because you will not be able to understand what's happening. You are not giving the consent. You are simply inside with your avatar in a 3D world that looks like a real world. So you will experience a real-like, you will have real-like experiences in the metaverse. So figure out the impact on the individuals. So, okay. So, I mean, we need to update the legal and ethical frameworks. It's not only the legal framework. I mean, I'm a researcher at university. We all are academics, and there are also ethical aspects that are not legal aspects, of course. So updating our international legal and ethical frameworks is imperative now with these coming challenges, technologies. So most current human rights norms were established before the digital era and are not equipped to handle today's complexities. So we need to advocate for rights to mental privacy, immunity for manipulation, from digital manipulation, I mean information manipulation especially, and information autonomy to address the challenges of the digital era. And this includes considering new legal instruments and ethical guidelines that specifically address the impacts of digital technologies on human rights. So I think that I'm finishing my time, so I will run to close up. So I think that in addressing these issues, we require a collaborative effort between governments, international organizations, because this technology, I mean, they cannot be, they are not bound by boundaries. So these are global technologies. It's like the internet. It's a global infrastructure. So we are globally interconnected nowadays with our application, the application of our mobile devices and our laptops. So governments, international organizations, and academic institutions must work together to develop policies that mitigate the risk associated with digital and cognitive influences. And multilateral and interdisciplinary collaboration, in my opinion, is key to creating effective solutions. For example, international cooperation on cybersecurity standards can help protect against cross-border cyber threats, while academic research can provide insights into the psychological impacts of digital technologies. So we as academics, I think that we are useful. So I make it brief now, just to close up. Here there are some policy recommendations to mitigate risks associated with digital and cognitive influences, and then giving you some examples that were put in place and are working and effective. So these policies and examples demonstrate the importance of proactive measures and international collaboration in mitigating the risks associated with digital and cognitive influences. Okay. So we have to develop a resilient standards. The development of resilient standards is crucial for anticipating and responding to advanced technological threats. And we need adaptive human rights standards that can evolve with technological advancements. Sorry. So these slides highlights examples of successful collaborations and initiatives that you can see here at the bottom that have set the groundwork for these resilient standards in other fields, of course, but are good examples. For instance, the General Data Protection Regulation of the European Union and other protection like Google Earth Engine and Global Forest Watch, Green Climate Fund, the Healing Forest Initiative from the World Wildlife Fund and Johnson & Johnson, and the Power Africa Initiative by USAID, and the Tropical Landscapes Financial Facility set up by the UN Environment Program, the World Agroforestry Center, and BNP, that is a bank, Paribas, and ADM Capital. So these are good examples on how you can put together governments, intergovernmental organizations, also NGOs and the private sector and the academics to work together to solve some major issues. Now I go to the conclusions. So in conclusion, we must adopt a predictive model for the evolution of human rights. And the proactive measures are essential for empowering individuals in the digital age. And by rethinking human rights holistically, we can ensure that these human rights remain relevant and effective in contemporary and future geopolitical and technological contexts that we are not able to predict them at all, because I mean we are on this technological age. Technology is changing so rapidly, and also the geopolitical landscape. So this involves not only updating the legal frameworks, but also fostering a culture of digital literacy and ethical awareness among all the stakeholders. So thanks very much. Sorry if I took too much of the time. Thanks for your attention. And here there are my contacts at the end. So, and this presentation is available on the internet. Thanks very much.
Okay, Marco, thank you very much. Anju, yeah, okay.
Yes, thank you, Marcos. It was really indeed a very informative content which you have shared. And I think the issues which you have raised is really there's a time now to come to have a collaborative effort, we all are facing these problems, especially with the new generation, the technology which has come up, and it has posed a threat to each and everyone on the planet. So I think now the suggestions which you have given, I think the time has come not to think selfishly, but to have a collaborative effort. Thank you so much, Marcos. Would you like to say something, JJ?
No, thank you very much. Maybe on the end, it will be my short comment. Marco, thank you very much for this presentation. It was very, very interesting. This is also the scope of my research, so I hope for cooperation in the future. Okay, let's jump to the next presenter. It will be Katarzyna Sypień, because I can see still the Professor Ravin Sankar from University of Kerala in India. Yeah. So okay. Welcome.
I think I'm audible and visible now. Can you confirm that?
Yes. Anju, can you?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes. You are very much audible.
Okay, great. So my name is Katarzyna Sypień. I'm PhD student at Jagiellonian University. Firstly, I wanted to thank you all the organizers that I can be here with you today. That I can
I'm
deliver.
sorry. Can you switch on the full screen presentation, because now we can see.
I am full screen.
Mm-hmm.
I will try to do it again.
No. Everything is okay, but you can push the button od początku, maybe, yeah?
I pushed it, and I think it should be on the full screen.
Okay. Don't worry. So we can see this presentation, so maybe it will be okay. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, if everything is not okay, so feel free to stop me. So I will try to maybe fix it somehow. So I wanted to thank you to be part of this excellence and very important conference. I will deliver my speech on topic climate change and the right to exist, human rights and territorial sovereignty in vulnerable Asian states. And in my presentation, I will start with a quick overview of collective human rights and then move on to climate change and emerging gaps. Then I will outline the Asian context and role of collective environmental rights in the age of climate change. And I have posed 4 questions in the preparation of this presentation, although I hope that you will have even more after the presentation. And rather than explaining the problem fully, I will fuel your thinking on the further implications it raises. So my 4 questions are: can human rights frameworks evolve to address existential threats to states due to climate change? How might territorial rights be reconceptualized for individuals, communities, and states? Should collective environmental rights compel stronger global climate action? And what can Asian states do to secure human rights under climate-induced instability? So as all of you know, human rights have evolved over time into 3 generations: civil and political rights, economic and social rights, and collective rights. And the 3rd generation, which includes the rights to development, peace, and a clean environment, is especially relevant today, as it focuses on collective protections. However, the 3rd generation rights often lack enforceability in international law. For example, the right to a healthy environment recognized in documents like the 1972 Stockholm Declaration remains largely aspirational and non-binding. So despite their advancements, these frameworks have critical gaps, particularly when it comes to existential threats posed by climate change. And the 3rd generation rights emphasize environmental protection, but do not explicitly address what happens when an entire state or territory becomes uninhabitable. For instance, island nations like the Maldives or
I'm sorry, Katarzyna, I'm sorry,
yes?
but because we can see still the first slide. I don't know, it is your intention or not?
I don't know why.
Okay,
So,
yeah. Now it's overview.
I will try to do share my screen again.
Maybe not share a screen, but share a presentation.
I share the application. So, do you see a slight overview of human rights?
Yeah. Overview of human rights. Yeah.
Okay, so I will try to do it full screen. It should be full screen now. I don't know if it is, if you see this full screen.
Don't worry, it works. We can see. So even such a mode, don't worry. Let's go further, okay?
Okay, so I don't know why this viewed as it is, but yeah, it's technical issues. I'm sorry in advance. So I was talking about the nations like Maldives and Kiribati face the prospect of losing their land entirely due to the rising sea levels. And the current human rights frameworks do not provide clear mechanisms for addressing issues of state sovereignty, territorial integrity, or even the relocation of entire populations. And this problem highlights a fundamental issue. Existing human rights were primarily designed to protect individuals and communities, not states as entities, yet when states themselves face existential threats, the impacts trickle down to every citizen, affecting governance, the culture, and identity. So the climate change poses one of the most significant threats to human rights in modern times, affecting millions through rising sea levels, resource loss, and habitability crisis. And for example, in Bangladesh, coastal erosion and annual flooding not only displaced thousands of people, but also undermine their rights to housing, to health, to livelihoods. And similarly, small island nations like Tuvalu and the Maldives face the alarming prospect of complete submersion. And beyond the individual impacts, climate change directly threatens state sovereignty and territorial integrity. And if a country loses its lands to the rising seas, what happens to its legal existence under international law? So questions about governance, citizenship, and cultural preservation remain unanswered in today's frameworks. And existing human rights models fail to address the existential challenges faced by entire nations. Can you confirm that slides changed?
Asian context, yeah, global responsibility.
Redefining rights in the context of climate change. Okay, so you think the correct slide. I'm great that you confirmed that. So the current human rights framework must evolve to address the complex challenges posed by climate change. A key step is recognizing the right to territory, not just for states, but also for the individuals and communities they encompass. So territorial loss due to the rising seas should be acknowledged as a direct violation of both state sovereignty and citizens' basic rights. Equally critical is integrating environmental sustainability into enforceable rights. And this means holding states and global actors accountable for their environmental impact, ensuring collective global responsibilities are met to protect vulnerable nations. And by aligning sovereign rights with environmental protections and also global obligations, the framework can address the interconnected nature of climate threats, balancing state-level survival with the global need for sustainability. And without this redefinition, neither state nor people will have adequate safeguards against climate-induced crises. And Asian islands and coastal states face some of the highest risk from climate change, with rising sea levels and extreme weather events posing existential threats to their territories, but also economies and also the populations. The Maldives is a prime example. As the world's lowest lying nation, more than 80% of its land could become uninhabitable by the end of this century due to the rising sea levels. And this would force the displacement of its entire population, threatening their cultural identity and sovereignty. Also, the Philippines, another highly vulnerable nation, experiences frequent typhoons and severe coastal erosion. In 2020 alone, Typhoon Bonnie displaced if I remember correctly, over 800,000 people, damaging homes, infrastructure, and agriculture. And with thousands of islands and millions of people relying on coastal farming and fishing, this nation's socioeconomic fabric is under constant strain. And even the centuries with even countries with greater resources like Singapore are not immune, because Singapore is investing heavily in climate adaptation, including billions for the seawall, defenses and infrastructure to combat the rising sea levels. But while this demonstrates proactive governance, it also underscores that the scale of resources needed to address these risks. Resources that many less developed states, such as Bangladesh or Myanmar, just lack. So the socioeconomic dependence on coastal and maritime resources exacerbates these vulnerabilities. And fisheries and aquaculture industries are lifelines for countries like Malaysia, which derives significant GDP and employment from these sectors. However, warming oceans, the coral bleaching, and disrupted ecosystems are jeopardizing those livelihoods. The communities reliant on these resources face not only the economic challenges, but also food insecurity, the further compounding the human rights risks. So these examples highlight the uneven impacts of climate change in Asia, with the smaller and less resourced nations at higher risk, while welfare states may be better equipped to adapt, but the broader region remains tied to the maritime resources, which are increasingly threatened. So the survival and the prosperity of these nations highly depend on urgent global and regional action to mitigate and adapt to climate risks. And moving to the territorial loss. Territorial loss in ASEAN states due to the climate change is not just an environmental or political issue. It is fundamentally a human rights challenge, because losing land to rising sea levels directly threatens the right to the housing, to the livelihood, and to the cultural preservation. And for example, coastal communities in Vietnam's Mekong Delta are already experiencing displacement as sea level rise. Salinization damages farmland and homes are engulfed. So this is the current problem. The governance becomes increasingly complex as territories shrink or disappear. And for nations like Indonesia, where thousands of islands are home to really diverse populations, the loss of smaller islands due to the rising sea could create disputes over the maritime boundaries, but also over the resource ownership and internal displacement management. So for the displaced communities, the questions arise about their legal status. So where do the citizens go where the homeland vanishes? How can government uphold their sovereignty or represent their people when the land ceases to exist? So the cultural and national identity are also at stake in nations like the Philippines, where coastal and island communities often have their own unique languages, traditions, but also the ways to live. The forced relocations of these populations risk eroding centuries of cultural heritage. So the territorial loss in ASEAN states is not just about physical space. It undermines the social cohesion, the national pride, and the preservation of diverse identities. So in response, some ASEAN nations are attempting to address these risks. The Philippines has adopted a national framework on climate adaptation, emphasizing disaster preparedness and community resilience. Indonesia has committed to mangrove restoration projects just to protect the coastal areas and absorb the carbon. And ASEAN has launched initiatives like the ASEAN Agreement on Disaster Management and Emergency Response, promoting collaboration in disaster risk reduction and climate resilience. However, these efforts are often, not always, but often, limited by funding, coordination, and the scale. So addressing the territorial loss requires more robust policies, including international cooperation, sustainable infrastructure investments, and legal frameworks for those displaced populations. Because without this, ASEAN states risk losing not just land, but the very essence of their governance, their culture, and their identity. So moving back to collective rights. The collective environmental rights emphasize a shared global responsibility for protecting ecosystems and vulnerable populations. And these rights are critical in addressing climate challenges as environmental harm transcends borders and disproportionately impacting nations like the Tuvalu or Bangladesh. However, the effectiveness is hindered by the lack of the enforceable mechanisms, leaving vulnerable states with little resources against major polluters. So to address this, international human rights law must evolve. The binding treaties and accountability mechanisms are needed to compel the stronger climate actions from nations and corporations. And for example, agreements that enforce emissions reduction or provide compensation for climate-related damage could make these rights actionable. And without such evolution, collective rights will remain just symbolic, offering minimal protection against escalating environmental crises. So moving to the conclusions, climate change reveals significant gaps in human rights framework, which are ill-equipped to address challenges like the territorial laws and state sovereignty, and the rising sea levels, resource depletion, and habitability crisis threaten fundamental rights, particularly in the vulnerable Asian nations. And these realities demand an urgent redefinition of human rights, incorporating territorial integrity and environmental sustainability into one global framework to protect both individual and states. And the Asian nations face disproportionate risks due to their dependence on maritime resources, but also on the geographical exposure to the climate impact. So the loss of the land and resources undermines governance, displaced populations and erodes cultural identities. So strengthening collective environmental rights is essential, emphasizing shared global responsibility. However, these rights remain ineffective without enforceable mechanisms to hold polluters accountable to drive equitable climate action. So international law must evolve to meet these challenges, creating mechanisms to protect displaced populations and redefining statehood for nations, those nations facing territorial loss, and fostering global cooperation also. Without these reforms, the global community risks failing the millions most affected by the climate change, jeopardizing the rights, sovereignty, and future. And this is the future for us all, unfortunately. So this is my bibliography, the selected sources. And I'm sorry that you cannot enjoy fully my presentation. I think that you could still see the key points.
Okay, Anju?
Well, Katarzyna, we definitely could see your presentation and we could hear you. But the very important thing which you pointed out is that, the climate change and environmental rights, they are posing a significant threat to human rights, especially for vulnerable population. The points which you raised, that rising sea levels, extreme weather conditions, especially when you gave the examples of the Asian countries, and which has led to the displacement and food insecurity and conflict. So the right to healthy environment is increasingly recognized as a fundamental human rights, and this includes right to clean air, which most of the constitutions of the world they have. And for this, you have said that we need a mechanism. Definitely, I think much is being done the international cooperation is addressing this problem. And but the thing which is very close to this climate change and fundamental right is that because of this threat, we are also facing one of the problem of migration and refugee rights because of the displacement which is being we can see a lot of displacement because of the complex issues due to conflict of maybe because of the climate change, or maybe because of this displacement there are a lot of economic disparities also, which is connected to this. The refugee problems, the migrants, they are subjected to human rights abuses. This is very much closely related to the climate change, especially in the Asian countries. So, well said. I mean, the point is very much relevant, and I think most of the countries now they have understood the need of clean air, clean water, and I think very soon, uh, and we are addressing, all the countries are addressing this problem, and they are trying to, they are trying to find a mechanism, they are trying to collaborate to resolve this issue. Over to you, JJ.
Okay, thank you very much, Anju. Thank you very much to all speakers. Unfortunately, the third speaker is absent. I think that this is technical problems. Okay, so thank you very much for your presentations. So Katarzyna's speech, it was about referring to the Karol Wasak's concept of 3 generations of human rights. It is the right to safety and development. This is a part of third generation of human rights, as you mentioned. And Marco mentioned about the digital rights. This is a conception on 4th generation on human rights, yeah. But it is interesting that for young generation, for example, when we can observe Greta Thunberg. So it seems that the right to safety and environment is maybe more important than digital rights. Maybe for our generation, the problem of digital rights, it's maybe more important. But I think that we can say in last previous panel, we discussed about rights to life. And I think that in the case of rights to safety and environment, this is also the discussion about the right to life. When we so please remember that, for example, according to the EU data in 2020, dust PM 2.5 and PM 10 killed almost 250,000 of people in EU. So, for example, in Poland last year it was 43,000 of people, yeah, who died because we have such bad quality of environment. So we can say that this is in fact a discussion about the right to life, yeah. But so once again, I asked during the last panel about the role and position of United Nations. So here, this is the same problem, yeah. When we think about digital rights, Marco, thank you very much, because it's this topic is close to my heart and my mind also, because on one hand we have, for example, opinion Antonio Guterres last year. He stated digital technology is shaping history, but there is also the sense that it is running away with us. Where will it take us? Will our dignity and right be enhanced or diminished? Will our societies become more equal or less equal? Will we become more or less secure and safe? The answer to this question depends on our ability to work together across disciplines and actors, across nations' political divides. We have a collective responsibility to give direction to these technologies so that we maximize benefits and curtail unintended consequence and malicious use. And in result, United Nations announced a roadmap for digital cooperation last year. We have also such document like Global Charter on Digital Rights. This is also very interesting, but I think that European Union plays one of the most important roles. So the same like in the area of climate change. And always is a question. Okay, for example, in the case of climate change and rights to safety and environment, okay, we have in European Union very high standards on this area, but we can see that in other parts of the world there are completely different attempts to this problem, especially from governments. Yeah. So I think about declaration of President-elect US Donald Trump. Yeah, okay, economy the first, not such idea utopia like safety and environments and climate change. Yeah, so always we can ask the question. So. Okay, European Union, this is a group of states, yeah? This is almost one continent, but this is only a Europe and partially Europe. So do we need the global action of this field, both on the field of natural environment and digital rights, because nature, this is global perspective. The same on the level of digital rights, we can say that we have internet, global web, so we need the global solution. And Marco, my question is, do you think we are ready for the new Universal Declaration on Human Rights in Digital Rights? And Katarzyna, the same. Do you think that we need the Universal Declaration of Human Rights in the time of climate change?
Yeah, thanks very much, Jerzy, for your question. So, yeah, the access to the internet, to digital services is fundamental now because you have your digital citizenship. So this is a debate that it's ongoing since about 20 years, since the internet broke out in our daily lives. So we have this is already well-established principle for digital citizenship, that we all have a minimum level of access to the internet, the broadband, and so on. Like the European Union adopted this legal framework, and within the current plan for resilience and so on, it's called the PRRN and so on. So there are funds were provided to states to implement their 5G networks in order to grant to all the citizens the same basic right to access to a broad connection to the internet. This is essential, of course, for public services, digital public services. Otherwise, we will have citizens of A class and B class. I mean, first and second division. That is not possible, of course, and also for the economy, it's fundamental to have. I mean, for the digital market, it's fundamental to have the access to the broadband. On the other side, I'm worried about coming to the on the other hand, and this is the other face of the coin of the digital rights, is that as they are rights, I mean there are rights that were conquered in the past centuries, especially in the 18th, 19th century and the 20th century, in the second half. That I told you before is the right to information, that it's originally is the right, the freedom of expression, the freedom of the thought. So it became the freedom of afterwards became the freedom of information, that is the right to information. So, but originally it was the freedom of the thought, so to express your thought without any kind of censorship. But since the COVID-19 pandemic, we are assisting to a censorship that is not put in place directly by the institutions like states of the European Union, because these states are still bound by these fundamental charters like the European Declaration on Human Rights. So they can't officially put in place any kind of censorship. If you go into the Digital Service Act, market services, I mean, and into the Artificial Intelligence Act, these are two regulations, not the directives. The regulations approved by the Council. So if you read these acts, fundamental rights that regulate this jointly, they regulate the digital market in Europe. they give to the private companies, the social media companies, the power to take down the contents that I'm quoting that are false or dangerous. So I mean, we are giving to private companies that all of them are U.S. companies, American companies, the power to decide which kind of information can circulate, be disseminated on social media platforms. And this is something that we should be, I mean, concerned about, because the European institutions, they are putting in place a kind of censorship that is not implemented directly by them, because they can't, because as I told you, they are bound by these instruments on human rights, but they gave to these platforms, so social private companies, the power to put in place censorship. So this is very it's a major concern that should be part, I mean, be included in some kind of digital human rights act or charter or something like that. Thanks.
Okay, thank you very much for your answer. So if I may add something to your comment. Because we can find such argument that case of Artificial Intelligence Act, I mean about the EU regulation. Yeah, this is first in the world so strictly act which regulate this issue, artificial intelligence. But some people argues that so in this case the level of regulation this is obstacle to development of technology, because in China they are not such limitation. For example, in US also there are not. Yeah, now this is a big race who will be on the first position in this race. I mean about race about with artificial intelligence, yeah, mechanism. So, do you think that regulation could be in the name of protection of human rights, could be obstacle in the development of economy and business, etc. Yeah.
No, I told you before that if you go through the main instruments, the major instruments of human rights, also those adopted in Latin America, there are many instruments, the so-called Pact of New York, that is about the political and civilian rights and so on. There are so many instruments of human rights also adopted by the ASEAN and these other, I mean, international non-governmental organizations in other countries. Also the Council for the Cooperation of the Arabic countries, they adopted, and also Muslim countries, they have their own human rights instruments. Of course, they are much different from ours, because we have different backgrounds, cultural backgrounds. So, but that said, I still, if you go through all these charters, I mean, you just can find the right to information, the freedom of the thought, and so on, that are protected as universal human rights. But I mean, there is no other fundamental right that supports the curtail, I mean, of our fundamental rights, like the freedom to information. I mean, this is prevalent because, I mean, I can't understand how you can compress this fundamental right through censorship on who decides that who takes the decision that a content it's false or it's dangerous. So I mean, we are jeopardizing one of our main fundamental human rights, that is the right to information. Because in democracy, in the market of in democracy, I mean, it's fundamental for the citizens that are also voters to get different opinions in order to form their opinion when they go to put their ballot into the box for the elections. So, I mean, in democracies, in liberal democracies, it should be like this. Many opinions, the market of ideas, I'm quoting Habermas, in the market of ideas, that is, I mean, confronting the debate between different opinions is fundamental for a democratic environment, and so on. Without this, we will just have mainstream opinions like we are having since the COVID-19 pandemic, and this is not healthy. I mean, it doesn't help to have a healthy society, on my opinion. So we still have to stand up and to fight for our fundamental human rights in the digital era, including this one, that is the freedom of information, that is fundamental for a healthy democracy and society. It's my opinion.
Okay, thank you very much. Katarzyna?
JJ, if you permit, I would like to just question one thing from Marco.
Okay. Welcome.
So Marco, do you think that we can build ethical models of algorithms and data? Is it really possible when we talk about, the thing which you have already talked of, that we can, when we go out to vote, we should see. So do you think this would really help in creating ethical model of algorithms or data from where we can have this we can have censorship on what is going on the on the artificial intelligence, or maybe some problems arising because of that?
Yeah, thanks very much for the question. That it is very challenging, because, as I told you before, I mean, this is a global issue. This is a global market, the digital market, and information became a global product, just to say, a global principle as a value for everybody nowadays. So this information is fundamental for taking any kind of decision. I mean, before deciding which is your outfit, you check the weather forecast and so on. So just to say that any kind of information, we get it from the internet, and it's fundamental for taking decisions, even also daily decisions like this one, like which will be my outfit today, the clothes, if it will rain or not. So, but when we come to talk about the principles, this is very tricky, because you have maybe you have a different background from my background, because religious backgrounds, religious principles and ethical principles are not the same. Even within Europe are not the same, because, just to say, we have Catholic countries and Protestant countries in Europe and so on, and just to say, Turkey is a NATO ally, and all the other countries except the United States and Canada, all the UN member states are European states. And so, I mean, of course, you can think that I share the same principles with my Turkish friends, and I do not have, I mean, the same background. I do not share the same values with the Nordic countries. I mean, because they are so different. So, and also the Canadians and the Americans are different from us, and within the United States there are so different. You have seen with this the presidential election. So it's hard, because we need global governance, global rules on digital rights and artificial intelligence and so on, these technologies. But on the other side, it's so hard. It's like for terrorism. Do you know that there is no undisputed and legal definition, bounding definition of terrorism, or what is a terrorist? There is not, because there are different approaches. I mean, African countries are afraid that rebels, I mean, people struggling for independence, they can be labeled by Western power as terrorists. Instead, they are seen sometimes as freedom fighters. So I mean, it's hard because we are different, with different backgrounds, cultural backgrounds, you know. So I think that it's impossible to have an international regulation, you know, like a United Nations treaty on digital human rights and so on. It's impossible.
Thank you, Marcos. JJ, any question from Katrina?
No. Maybe I would like to ask Katarzyna for answer on my comments and question, okay, if I may.
Yes, very gladly. Thank you very much for your comments and the question. I think that yes, the global declaration should be implemented because it's not the matter of willingness, it's the matter of necessity. And I know it's not easy, but we see the results of, I don't know, the COP's summit. Many promises, but in many cases, lack of actions. And there are two lessons I learned while writing my master thesis about the environmental security in India. The first one is that leaders will always do what they want. The national interest always comes first. Their ministry published the data about the trees, how many areas have been reforested, but there is no information how many areas have been logged in this same time, and also how many money have been deducted to this cause. India imposes the ban on using firecrackers during festivals, but firecrackers are still being sold. Illegal, but they are being sold. Modi promised Panchamrit, but India is not resigning from using coal. Okay, there is improvement in the energy sector, but still the national interest comes first. The second lesson is that this is a matter of money. So wealthy states can invest in climate-resistant buildings or anything, but there should be a fair redistribution of resources from richer countries to prevent the effect on climate change that await us all. Okay, the lower-lying nations will be first to vanish below the surface, but we are next. The rest of the globe is next. It will not happen in the next 50 years, 100 years, maybe 200 years, but we are still on the list. We are next. So I think the time is short, so this will be my answer.
Okay, thank you very much. Anju, thank you for chairing this session. Marco and Katarzyna, thank you for your presentations. So I think that now, we will send you the certificates next week. Probably. Now we'll have a lunch break, dinner break, or breakfast day. It's a break. It depends on time zone. And I hope that we will meet 3:15 p.m. Yeah. So next maybe 25 minutes. Okay. And
thank you, JJ. Thank you all the presenters.
Thanks, Anju. Thanks very much, Jersey. See you later.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you.